believe now we're going to be doing the student panel, correct? Perfect. Is there a video to? No? All right. There are so many people here who deserve to be recognized, but there is one group of people sitting in this audience who deserve special recognition. For the last 8 months, Jewish students who came to university across the US to study have been subjected to some of the most horrific acts of violence, anti-Semitism, and hate we have ever seen on American college campuses. Our Jewish students across campus have demonstrated incredible strength, resilience, and determination in the last few months. Let's welcome our next panel to the stage. The panel will be moderated by Tamar Schwarzbard, Head of Digital Operations at the Digital Diplomacy Bureau at the Israel MFA, and include Shabbos Kestenbaum, Harvard University student, and Noah Benitah, Virginia Tech student. Yes, please come to the stage, and you guys have the floor. Thank you so much, Tamar.
Thank you. Okay, there are 2 microphones behind you guys. Thank you. Okay, first of all, I want to give a warm shout out to all of the students in the room. How many students do we have here? Can we get a round of applause for all of the students? Great. Okay, so before we start the panel, we're just going to watch a quick video to put things into perspective. So please pay attention to the screen behind you, and then we can get started.
At Penn, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's rules or code of conduct? Yes or no?
If the speech turns into conduct, it can be harassment, yes.
I am asking, specifically calling for the genocide of Jews, does that constitute bullying or harassment?
If the
Yes
speech
or no?
If the speech becomes conduct, it can be harassment, yes.
Conduct meaning committing the act of genocide? The answer is yes. And Dr. Gay, at Harvard, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
It can be, depending on the context.
What's the context?
Targeted as an individual, at an individual.
It's targeted at Jewish students, Jewish individuals. I will ask you one more time. Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
Anti-Semitic rhetoric, when it
And is it anti-Semitic rhetoric?
Anti-Semitic rhetoric, when it crosses into conduct.
Okay, so we all get the context. I think it's pretty obvious.
Can I just say, the day after that, the Harvard Board of Trustees unanimously passed a resolution saying that they believed Claudine Gay was the right person for the job, and the moron who was shaking his head yes in back of her is now the new president of Harvard.
Okay. So we have 2 amazing students here with us today. I'm going to ask that each of you introduce yourself. Shabbos, we'll start with you. You can tell us where you're in university and talk a little bit about what your experience was like before October 7th. Shabbos?
Sure. So first of all, Ben Shapiro told me a couple of weeks ago I talk very fast. So if Ben Shapiro tells you you talk fast, you know you have a problem. So I'll try my best, but bear with me. My name is Shabbos Kestenbaum. I'm a proud first-generation Jew. I'm a proud Zionist, and I have the honor of suing Harvard University into the ground for their failure to combat anti-Semitism here at Harvard. And I just want to say, I was in Poland. Literally, I landed late last night. I was there for 4 days. I had a bike ride 60 miles from Auschwitz-Birkenau to the Jewish Community Center of Krakow. At the Jewish Community Center of Krakow, they have had since October 7th every single hostage poster in Hebrew, in English, and in Polish, in massive, massive banners in front of the building. It has not once been defaced, torn down, or vandalized. At Harvard University, every single time that we put up any poster pertaining to the kidnapping of Jewish babies, it has been defiled, it has been vandalized, it has been thrown out. People had written that Jews, on our hostage posters, Jews did 9/11, Jews are best friends with Jeffrey Epstein, and there has been no accountability. 3 months ago, the Students and Faculty for Justice supremacists in Palestine released a horrific anti-Semitic cartoon. There's not been any accountability. Sorry, I'm going on a rant. I'll give me 10 more seconds.
Doing good.
A staff member, I'm not shitting you, I'm not making this up. A staff member at Harvard University challenged me to debate him as to whether Jews were involved in 9/11, then taunted me with a machete. I had private armed security outside my house for a week. A guy with a gun had to follow me when I went to pray at Chabad, because that's how bad it is to be a Jew at Harvard. It's not an exaggeration. It's not a hyperbole. And I can think of no more damning indictment on the state of higher education in the United States, that the only way we can receive equity, equality, and fairness is to freaking sue them. And they are in court right now in Boston filing a motion to dismiss with prejudice, pretending that everything is fine. Everything is not fine. And I am not an influencer. I barely know how to use social media, but all of you in this room are. And at any conference, at any convention, at any platform, you have to ask yourself, have we amplified the voices of Jewish students? And if the answer is no, you must immediately tell your publicist, tell your agent, tell whoever that Jewish students must be at the forefront of your activism, because Jewish students are at the front lines. We're taking a lot of crap, and we need the support of all of you. And that was a very long way of me saying my name is Shabbos.
Okay, thank you, Shabbos. Noah, we will get to you in a minute. I just wanted to ask you, can you talk just in one line about what life was like before October 7th on campus?
Yeah, I should also say I have diagnosed ADD and I didn't take my medication today, so you might have noticed. The idea that anti-Semitism just magically appeared on October 7th is so wrong. And you should read our lawsuit. Again, I'm not an influencer, but on my social media, I've done a pretty good job of documenting this. There was horrific, pervasive, and systemic anti-Semitism. I'll give you one quick example. Muhammad El-Kurd, if any of you know him, he appears on the Anti-Defamation League's top 10 anti-Semites. He is someone who has said that Jews eat the organs of Palestinians. He says that the Israeli occupying forces have internalized the ways of Nazi Germany. And for those of you on Twitter, he lamented the fact that Palestinians can't hijack planes anymore. So he was invited in my first month of being a student at Harvard to speak on campus for the third time. Harvard was ranked 248th out of 248 universities by the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expressions, saying that they have no concern for free speech or free expression. They don't. They routinely rescind, I'm getting this slow, they routinely rescind and disinvite transphobic speakers, misogynistic speakers, racists. Whether they should or shouldn't, that's what they do. When we went to Harvard and said, this is a man who believes that we eat the organs of Palestinians, how could you possibly allow him to come to campus while in the same breath saying that racist speakers can't come? And they said he has a First Amendment right. What do you want us to do about it? Besides the fact he legally does not have a First Amendment right, that is a double standard, that is anti-Semitic, and as we will prove in court, that is illegal.
Okay. So Harvard seems like quite a party. What has your experience been like at Virginia Tech? Can you talk a little bit about it?
So hey everyone, I'm Benitah. I'm a student at Virginia Tech. So before October 7th, we definitely faced, of course, like anti-Semitism, but I will be honest, we didn't see it as prevalent, of course, as after October 7th. But I'll give an example of what happened before October 7th. So I am now going into my second term as president of Hokies for Israel, but that's our pro-Israel organization on campus. But the first term started in May, not this year, last year. So that was April. So it's right before the summer started. So it's like I only had our big Israel Fest to plan. They kind of like throw you into it right when you get elected. So I was really excited, looking forward to it. We plan Israel Fest. I'm at Israel Fest. I'm like, wow, like I'm so proud of me and my new exec. It looks amazing. So many people are stopping by. I think we had about 1,000 people walking in between and stopping by, getting candy from the shuk. Overall, a very positive, fun event. And then at one point, we had some students coming up with Palestinian flags, kind of just standing there and just taking pictures, holding their flag in front of our flag. And I remember our Israel fellow at the time, she was getting so angry because the cops were saying, hey, we really can't do anything. They're not harming anyone. They're not really yelling anything. And that's kind of like where I first had to experience on a personal level of going up to them, being like, hey, did you want to come have a conversation? Did you want to come try out some of our snacks? We have some aroma coffee. What are your intentions here? It led to about a 10-minute dialogue of me against these 5 Palestinian students, which did end up becoming a respectful conversation. Did start off by them yelling, oh, you're a Zionist, you're a terrorist. So I've already heard this anti-Semitic rhetoric before October 7th, but it didn't get dragged to the way that it gets dragged now. After that respectful conversation, ended, they left, and that's all I heard from them. So that's kind of what would happen before October 7th.
So now I want to take you guys to October 7th. There has been a lot of speculation that the encampments that we're seeing on campus were organized way in advance, that they had a lot of strategy taking place. Shabbos, can you talk a little bit about what Harvard University looked like on October 7th?
Okay. I mean, where do I begin? Okay, I'm an Orthodox Jew. You know, I got my token tzitzit, so I don't use my phone on the Sabbath or on any Jewish holidays. I have 4 siblings who live in Israel, including a brother who's in Golani. Currently, he's stationed at the north. He's waiting for the all clear to go into Lebanon. Yeah, his name is Massi Kestenbaum, so big thank you to Massi. I have a 2-year-old nephew, my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles. I have family in Israel. I lived in Israel for 2 years. There were rumors that began circulating if there was a terrorist attack. Now, we're all friends here. We know that, unfortunately, the reality of having a Jewish state in the 21st century is that sort of par for the course. It's not a surprise. It's terrible. We pray, but okay. But as the night went on, the rumors persisted. There was a kidnapping. No, it was a bombing. There was a shooting. We weren't sure. Even though, and this is important, I've said this in front of Congress, I've said this on any news network who wants to listen, even though I have never used my phone before on the Sabbath once, October 7th, I was told to use my phone and to locate my loved ones in Israel to see if they were alive or not. As that was happening, listen, as this was, sorry, that was so rude of me.
We're listening.
Sorry. I talked to a lot of high schoolers, so they're like, they usually are, I don't know, doing drugs in the back. Well, maybe some of you are doing that. Okay. As we were doing that, 34 student groups representing more than 1,000 students at Harvard jumped out of bed, some in their pajamas, to draft what they called an emergency statement to blame Jews for the largest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. I'm going to sound like an elitist for a second. If this was a university that did not have name recognition, a university that does not matter in the national limelight, that would be one thing. Statistically speaking, given the thousands of people I've sat in classrooms with, I have probably sat in a classroom with the next president, with the next prime minister, with the next senator or congressman or religious or thought leader. If those classmates are given a whiff of power, then we in this country are on a very dangerous path. These are classmates who, on the night of October 7th, the largest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, were praising Hamas, were praising the Houthis, were praising Hezbollah. And in fact, on October 10th, there was the largest rally at Harvard I had ever seen, more than 1,000 students and professors claiming, "Long live the revolution." In fact, on October 9th, there was a WhatsApp message posted in the Harvard WhatsApp group saying, "Long live the Palestinian revolution. We are organizing a march." That was the night of October 7th. And the Religion and Public Life Department, which is where I'm getting my master's at, they released their own statement on October 11th. This is before Claudine Gay, Yamach Shemam. Before she did anything, the Religion and Public Life Department made their own statement. You know how their statement began? This is October 11th. They said as follows: "The great Palestinian poet once said, 'In order to understand a story, you have to go to its source.'" I will show you, message me, I will send you a copy of this letter. I'm not making it up. They said Israel has no right to self-defense. You have to go back 75 years to oppression, to apartheid, to genocide, to settler colonialism. There was no sympathy, no belief that Israel had a right to defend itself. I'm the only person in the Harvard religion program that wears a kippah. I'm very cognizant of the fact that I represent more than just myself. And let me tell you, it is awful. It is a battle that we are trying to wage every single day. And I could give you a lot more examples, but I know we're pressed for time.
Noah, how did the situation?
Thank you.
Noah, how
Sorry.
did the situation compare at Virginia Tech?
Yeah, so Virginia Tech started off, I would say, slower. So October 7th, I wasn't even in Blacksburg, where Virginia Tech is. I was on a trip with some of my friends from Virginia Tech. So when we heard the news, we were all hanging out, and then I went straight to my room, of course, pulled up my laptop, as everyone stayed up all night, horrified by what's going on. And then I realized, okay, we need an immediate emergency Hokies for Israel executive meeting. Like, we need to figure out what is about to happen on campus. Like we knew something's about to happen on campus with anti-Semitism, and not just our campus. Like, we knew that everything's about to change for all students across the country. So we immediately, on October 7th, on October 8th, the day after, we met on Zoom. We had kind of an exec meeting of, hey, this is what we're anticipating. Our Israel fellow was there. And at first, I didn't believe it, because I was like, okay, sure, yeah, anti-Semitism will rise, but also people will realize, oh, Hamas is bad. Look, they just raped so many women. They killed babies. They kidnapped a 9-month-old. Of course they're bad people. Of course, that's not the reality. So then on October 11th, we had a vigil at the Hillel building, not on campus for security purposes. And then actually, the president of our university lit up the main building on campus in blue and white in order to support and to say that he's supporting Israel and he condemns Hamas terrorism, which was amazing. Such a win for the Jewish community, and such a inspiration and a strength to then walk on campus and stand by the building at night after the vigil, and we sang the tikva, took pictures. It was really an empowering moment. But then, of course, we had some Palestinian students drive by, yelling at us, coming up, waving flags, to the point where they're getting out of their cars, yelling at us, and yelling at the cops that were just there to make sure that the situation's safe. Why are you guys doing this? This is horrible. I'm embarrassed by my school. I mean, it was literally a couple days after October 7th. Can you give us a second? Can we mourn? Can we digest what our people just went through? And so that was the first experience for us on campus. And I would say, honestly, it hasn't really been too crazy until March of this, this semester until March, when then they decided one day to wake up and try to bring BDS on campus. And then they decided to start posting, they've always posted it on social media. On October 7th, they were posting Hamas taking over the Israeli tanks, which according to student conduct is completely fine because our registered student organizations, which is an issue, is technically not really associated with the university. Even though it's a Virginia Tech Registered Student Association, they can't tell them what to do. There's no contract that they have to follow a certain guideline on how they behave. So it's completely appropriate to post terrorists on Israeli tanks and say, fighting for freedom, we're so happy, what a great day. So that was the biggest disappointment. But yeah, again, it really started the physical actions on campus in about March.
Wow, so I haven't been in college in a while. I won't give away my age, but it's been more than a decade. And I would feel as a college student if I saw what was happening on campus and have they reached out to you. Shabbos.
Sorry, I'm still trying to figure out your age. I'm kidding.
33.
I don't know about majority. That's actually a good, in fact, I wouldn't say majority. I'll give you an example. So Harvard has 13 schools. There's the college, which is the biggest. There's also the law school, the medical school, the business school. After October 7th, 4 of those schools passed boycott, divestment, and sanction resolutions. As a response to October 7th, they said we're going to divest from the Zionist entity. And in fact, that motion was put forth in front of the college, which is the largest school. We were able to fight it back on procedural grounds, but had it gone through, it would have passed overwhelmingly. So I don't actually think there's a silent majority, but I do want to make a very, very important point, because I get asked this question a lot. Right after this, I'll be flying to DC, and lawmakers will be asking me the same question. We cannot afford to acquiesce these spaces. My classmates will tell you Zionists off our campus. I know I'm going to get a lot of boos. I'm a registered Democrat. The Democratic Party must be forced, and the Harvard and the Virginia Techs must be forced to contend with the fact that there are progressives like myself who marched with Black Lives Matter, who marched with the LGBTQ community, and are also pro-Israel. I know you had my friend Congressman Richie Torres. We cannot acquiesce those spaces. We cannot surrender the Harvards and the Penns and the Ivy Leagues. We can't. Even though I don't think we're the silent majority, what we do have, we have 2 things. One, I'm religious, so we have God on our side. But number 2 is we have the truth. Go God. God gets a shout out. We also have truth on our side, and I really do mean that, because during the encampments, which I like to call the Harvard Hamas homeless shelters, I would go up to these people and I would ask them very basic questions, and it is shockingly how intellectually challenged they are. They know nothing about nothing. So do not be intimidated, do not be scared. We have the truth on our side, and while it's not a majority, we have to keep fighting. We cannot surrender those spaces, because there's nothing more that the anti-Zionists and the anti-Semites would like than for us to abandon those important places in American life.
Thank you. Noah, do you want to just give your response in 2 minutes?
Thanks.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You're good.
Yeah, so based on my experience, again, as kind of like what you said, I'm not really sure about a silent majority. I mean, I'm hoping, that's the hope, that we have people that are just too scared or too unsure of what to say or who to approach, and that's why they're not standing up. But I will say that, so this semester, as I said, in March kind of is when things started up. The graduate school brought BDS, actually really sad, a Jew. He's a Jewish student, and he's the one that brought BDS a couple years ago. The undergraduate student senate shut it down a couple years ago. They were like, the president of the university was like, we're not bringing BDS to campus. Like, this isn't happening. They tried bringing it again in March. Again, it's not going to happen at the undergraduate level, hopefully with our current administration. But my point is that he brought it to the graduate senate, and then when it was presented to the other undergraduate student senate as not a resolution, but more a statement. They wanted the USS to release a statement saying, hey, even though there's no policy, we support BDS. We believe that there's a genocide happening from Israel, like on Gaza, and all this, the fun words that they like to use. And then, thankfully, our undergraduate student senate president, she's Jewish, and she's a Zionist. So we were able to go and lobby and speak with all these senators on campus and be like, hey, like, this is why it's anti-Semitic, and there were professors there. And so there was this one professor who, he's actually the advisor for the SPJP on our campus, and he stood there And he said two things that I think are absurd that a faculty member is allowed to say to students, right? We're all students. He shouldn't even be there. I don't even know why he was there. But he said, you all should be looking at, who did he mentioned two universities that had the encampments ready, I think Yale and Columbia. He said, you should be looking at Yale and Columbia for inspiration. And then a couple of days later, encampment started. So that was absurd because I don't understand how a professor has the ability to use his power to literally spread hate and literally incite violence on our campus. So that was crazy. And then one more quick incident that happened is that he looked students in the eyes and said, I will remember all the faces of the Zionists that are in this room when we were lobbying at the Undergraduate Student Senate. So that's my take on silent majority. No one did anything. Our administrators are looking into it, but that's my experience.
On that positive note, let's give a round of applause to our amazing students fighting the good fight. We're very lucky to have you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We want every student in this room to know that we see you and hear you, and we will never stop standing with you. So thank you again for that informative panel.